Hello and welcome to another fun-filled edition of Adam's Music Box. Now, of the many things that the rock and roll era, particularly the contemporary rock and roll era of the mid to the early and mid 60s did to the music world, is that it made the songwriter a somewhat endangered species. Don't worry, they would come back. But for a while in the 60s and 70s, the rock bands that were around made it very uncool to sing other people's songs if you were working within the rock and roll idiom. If you were a vocalist, if you were a sort of all-around entertainer, if you were in the world of jazz or even in the world of country, singing songs written by a professional songwriter, if you were a professional singer, remained normal. But rock and roll, as it crept into the pop world, and as by the end of the 60s, rock and roll's musical idiom became the idiom of the pop world, you saw more and more of a drive for people to write what they were performing. And so you see the rise of the great era of the singer-songwriter in the 70s. You see bands who would never be caught dead playing someone else's music. And one of the bands that set this in motion were the Beatles, who, with a few exceptions of covers, they wrote their own songs. They were a band of songwriters, especially Ringo. And this was something that, again, it helped shape modern rock. And as rock began to shape modern pop, it shaped the pop music of the 70s, 80s, and beyond. Now, there's a duality to this because while most songwriters either have come traditionally from classical backgrounds or professional backgrounds, things like Tin Pan Alley, where they were, I'm a songwriter, I sit here and I write songs, or people that were sort of singer-songwriters, but more well-known for writing for others, people like the great Jimmy Webb, one of the great songwriters of all time. Certainly no one in the world of professional songwriting considered any rock and roll songwriters as real songwriters. They would have generally said, well, sure, they can write music for rock bands, but they couldn't ever write something that a proper singer would sing. That all changed when Ella Fitzgerald became the first of what turned out to be many people to cover a Beatles song. She did it in 1964 with her cover of Can't Buy Me Love. Now, why is this important? Because she gave credibility to the idea that it is possible to at one time be a rock and roll performer, but at the same time be a songwriter whose music is worthy of being covered by others. This was unknown before because most rock stars before, not all, but many, wrote sung other people's songs, and people from outside of the world of rock were continuing to rely on people who were the real songwriting pros. Think of your Liebert and Stollers, your Rodgers and Hammersteins, people like that. But with one foul, smooth breath into the microphone, Ella Fitzgerald, one of the most respected, beloved, and talented female vocals in the worlds of jazz, and I would say soul as well. She gave legitimacy to this idea that these young rockers have written a song worthy of a professional singer to cover. And since then, we've had a deluge, an oversaturation, you could say, of people covering Beatles songs. But what that does mean is that people from the singer-songwriter worlds of the 60s and 70s, which were very much part of the overall rock world, have allowed this process that was set in motion in 1964 said, okay, it's okay for a Vic Damone to sing a Billy Joel song. It's okay for a crooner to sing Whiter Shade of Pale. It's okay for someone to sing Bohemian Rhapsody outside of a rock band. It all began with Ella Fitzgerald, a true trailblazer in more ways than one. We'll talk about those others soon, and we have on my previous videos too. As always, like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Take care.